even if we know Clark is Superman, has he lied throughout time, or has he just been very careful about keeping a secret about who he is? I don't think it's super clear that Clark Kent is a liar because he doesn't tell the world that he's Superman.
If Smallville were a real place, who's getting arrested? Who's getting investigated? Who's ended up on that wall of weird? We're going to find out today. This is Doug Defends the Show, where a real lawyer talks about fake things. I am Billy Business. And no, don't adjust your sets. It's not Lex Luthor. It's the real defense attorney, Doug Ridley.
That's me. That's me. That's me. I love that because my head's just about as shiny. And I loved the one version of Lex has had a beard somewhere. I don't remember which version of Lex had a beard.
I mean, I remember in like the
I think it was Titans.
Superman. I don't know. Oh, you mean in the shows?
Yeah.
It was the John Cryer one, right?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, now I can do it. So actually, I got a Superman animated white tie, white vest, black suit, and wore a Lex Luthor for president button and walked around the con.
See, I wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
We are on the verge of Supergirl hitting theaters, the second.
Look up.
Look out. This is the second super installment of the DCU. We had Superman last year. Supergirl comes out this summer. Next year we have Man of Tomorrow. I'm loving this like super family every summer.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
So we thought about what would be the best way to kind of celebrate the super family, and we thought there's one show that has Clark.
Yes.
It has Supergirl.
Yes.
It even had an episode about crypto.
Yeah.
We are going all the way back to 2001's 10 years, 10 seasons.
Yes.
Smallville.
I watched every single episode as it aired and missed not a single one, even the one with witches and powers and red kryptonite. I watched them all. I watched every single one.
I've watched every single episode also. But I didn't start until about a little after halfway through. I had an injury one summer, and I was on the couch for 3 months, I watched seasons 1 through 6 in 3 months. Not healthy. Don't do that.
That's a lot.
This show. So I did a shameless plug. I did a Hot Takes with Billy Business episode with producer Bill about Smallville and my experience. And one of the things that we both said was like, yes, this is the like one of the archetype CW teen shows, but this show makes no bones about how earnest it's going to be, and in that way it's very endearing. And like if you just let yourself like be like, this is what it is, and I'm not gonna sit here and be cynical about it, I'm gonna like let it wash over me, like it's so much fun.
And then you get something. They did such a good job of giving you just a nibble of something really cool that you had been waiting for a bit, like every 5 episodes or so. So that it was like, oh, look, there's an S in the background. That's the closest thing we've had to.
But you know what's funny is that the show is really built around, like the X-Files really did a great job of setting up this like Monster of the Week type format, which these shows took on. But then the other side of that was the romance between Clark and Lana, which we know he's not going to end up with Lana. So you kind of want to see how this is all going to pan out. But after about 5 or 6 seasons, they realized, I think the teeny boppers that were watching for the romance are not watching anymore. And around season 7, I want to say, season 7, season 8, this show does a hard left turn into like, all right, comic book nerds, you're the only ones left. Do you want to see everything you've ever wanted to see?
I mean,
you want
Green
Doomsday?
Arrow?
You want Green Arrow? You want Toymaker? Do you want Dr. Fate and the Justice Society? Here you go. And I think that's what makes the show so fun is that I realized I was capable of being in a long-term relationship and marriage because I stuck with this thing through said witches season.
Right? Oh.
The good and the real bad.
Yeah. The ones where, he just really insisted he wanted some acting depth. So let's put on a red kryptonite ring and make some bad choices.
We're going to talk about the red kryptonite ring because this show, and I get it, but they have a big history of just being like at the last 10 minutes of the show being like, well, yeah, all the charges were dropped. It's fine. And then they move on. And it's like, no, sir, that is a decades long trial in the making.
That is a CW washing over of all the things.
I would say, and I know we're, like I said, with Supergirl coming out, we're only 2 movies into like their super family kind of aspect of it. But up until this point, a lot of definitive performances of characters or portrayals of characters for me. Like, I love Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and I can't wait to see where Man of Tomorrow takes it. But Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor to me is still the definitive version of that character and made me so interested in a way that I was never interested in that character before. I think what makes Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor so interesting is that up until that point, Lex Luthor, he is just the bad guy. And he hates Superman, and that's kind of it. But it takes 3, almost 4 seasons into this show before Lex even starts to really turn into not a great guy. And there was a part of me, especially, I'm binge watching this, the first time I'm watching it. I don't want that to happen.
Right. You care about him, and his friendship with Clark is real and very, very well developed. I remember the turning point for me in the show was when he has a vision or a dream or witches or something.
It's the second episode, or not it's the first season, but he goes to visit that woman. When she touches them, she sees their future.
And the white, all white suit and the blood pouring down. And I've never forgotten that visual. And that was the first inkling that you had that this rich kid could end up being a problem.
Right. And there are so many ways in the show where like, oh, if you had just zigged instead of zagged, this whole thing could have been rewritten. And they do rewrite a lot of the kind of expectations of Superman. The other thing I wanted to point out too was Ma and Pa Kent. The charm before was, they're kind of like the older kind of bumpkin, kind of,
like we have in Superman, in the most recent Superman movie.
Yes, and it's very endearing. Not this one, sir. There's no Ma or Pa to be found here.
No,
this is Jonathan.
Jonathan and Martha.
Yeah, and there could be, and I think there were a couple episodes where it's like you just let John Schneider be the hero because he looks still at that age like he could go out and do a whole action movie.
Yeah, and there was something cool about seeing Clark looking up to Jonathan Kent in that way.
Right.
Like it and not just in the emotional be a hero, be kind, be a good guy way, but also I'm gonna lift hay bales kind of a way and looking up to his dad like that. I don't know that I followed Martha's trip into politics as closely.
I think
but
once Jonathan dies in the 100th episode, there's kind of like what do we do with Martha, and she kind of disappears for a little while at the end. But again, once you get into 10 seasons of any show, like try to go back to the first season, you're like, there's almost no continuity here at all.
Well, and I also found it a little funny, and Wifey and I made a lot of jokes about when he finally left Smallville. I'm like, are they just going to change the name of the show? I mean, he's working at the Daily Planet.
Yeah, a lot of fans wanted it to be renamed to Metropolis. I'm like, don't do that. Just
right.
It's
Smallville. You can't change the branding at this point. I talk a lot about Wifey on the show and the things that irritates her, and she not once enjoyed the opening theme music. And after how many episodes total? I don't know, but I mean it's 10 seasons, and and that was back in the CW days. So there was probably over 40 episodes a season or something.
There was 22-ish.
Okay.
Keep vamping because I'm going to look up how many episodes.
No, look it up because while you're saying that, every time they went, somebody save me, she would, yeah. And I knew that was something that I could do to irritate her whenever I wanted to. So
217 episodes.
Oh, 217. Save me. And see, I turned away from the mic so I didn't blow out the speakers like I've done in some episodes, and I've done it twice. I'm going to see if I can work it in one more time just for Wifey as she's watching.
So let's address the elephant in the room real quick, because a lot of people may have not watched our show. They see legal show, they see Smallville. There's connotations. So let's address the elephant in the room. Some of the actors from Smallville, after their time on the show, have gone on to get themselves in real life legal trouble. We are not that kind of show.
Nope.
We don't talk really about. We are within the fandom. We're within the show. We talk about in-universe stuff. What would happen if Smallville was real? If Superman was real? If you want to find out about the real life legal problems that some of the cast members have had, there are documentaries out there. HBO has some. Michael Rosenbaum has a podcast with Tom Welling where they've talked about a lot of these things. There's plenty of resources out there. We today, as we talk about some of these actors and actresses, we are just talking about their characters on the show, and that's all we're going to say about that.
Yeah, Real Lawyer talks about fake stuff.
Yes.
Not Real Lawyer talks about real stuff.
Right. Because a lot of that stuff, I think, is still ongoing.
What if I was a fake lawyer talking about real stuff?
Then I would be in that chair.
There we go.
Because there is a lot of like legal things in this show within the in-universe that I'm
Please tell me we're going to talk about the witches.
No, we are not talking about the witches. The worst episode.
It is the worst episode.
I mean, or at least bottom 5. The groundhog one was pretty bad too.
That's pretty bad too.
There are just some awful ones.
Yeah. For those of you who don't remember, the witches episode was all the girls became witches. And they were evil and sexy.
Yeah, it was like, what if Charmed came to Smallville?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about some of the legal things here that this show, because of the nature that it was made for like teens and because of the longevity, there are things that just have to get brushed under the rug for the sake of, just like we got to keep the show going. But let's start here. In season 2 of the show, they actually they introduced this character, the sheriff, and I feel like it's a response to the most logical question you would have, which is, for the first 22 episodes of season 1, Clark is somehow there's like 20 disappearances, 15 deaths.
Yeah.
Clark is at every single one of them, and yet he's always cleared. So let me ask you, in real life, if there was a person who was always at a crime scene but never involved, at what point are the police going to, at what point can they, bring him in on, we know you've got something, but we don't know what it is. But there's no way that you are tied to 15 missing people and 25 dead people.
The challenge with it from a criminal defense attorney standpoint is that it's not probable cause. And so just happening to be a witness at a bunch of places, especially in a little place like Smallville.
Sure.
There's a reason why it's called Smallville, is because it's a small town. And so so there's not that many people there. And so, of course, he's going to be there at every time there's a problem at the high school because he goes to the damn high school. So if I'm
hold on, sorry, that's some CW hand waving there. Like,
For
of
sure
course
it
he's
is.
going to be at the. It's like, okay, but he's at the high school pool at 11:30 at night, and there's one meteor freak and Lana, and it's like, oh, why were you there?
Right.
You know, there's a lot of that.
because Lana was there.
I get it.
So if they pulled him in for questioning,
Sure.
I would be the guy, briefcase in hand, suit ready to go, just throwing open the door of the interrogation room saying, this interview's over. And I'd CW my way right out the door with Clark in hand. Now, for folks at home, we really can't do that as lawyers. That's not how it works, like, at all. Like, if any of you like brand new lawyers out there, because I know we have some new lawyers that like watching our podcast, don't try to do that because you'll get arrested. You don't get to just walk into the police station and go into an interrogation room and throw open any door and tell somebody that. I mean, you can, if you're invited and if you go back there and you got probable cause, no, you're going to arrest him. No. Okay. Well, then this interview's over. But in real life, I have expectations because people watch the TV and the movies and
Sure.
they think, hey, my son's being interrogated right now. It's like, okay, did you tell him to shut up before he went? No. Can you go down there and stop the interview? No, they're not gonna let me back there.
So the dramatic like 11th hour lawyer thing is
No,
just a
I've
TV
never
thing?
got to do that.
Oh.
Not once. Never would. And I mean, there is a chance that if I went down and was Doug, the lawyer,
Yeah.
instead of CW, the lawyer, and went down and said, hey, I was hired to represent Mr. Kent. I would like to talk to him now, please. There's a chance that I would get in there. But, if you're a criminal defense attorney watching the show and you've ever had success throwing open the door of an interrogation room, please send us a direct message or comment below because I got to know what your story is behind that.
Let me ask you this. After a certain number of these incidents,
Yeah.
and Clark is in 40 police reports at this point.
Yep.
Do you think that would be enough to go to a judge and be like, we should search this guy's house because somehow he's connected? Or would a judge be like, that's not enough? I guess I'm asking, like, what's the difference between someone being suspicious and probable cause?
Yeah, and it's not enough for probable cause. Now, if there were other factors involved, in more evidence, but just mere presence at 40 different crime scenes doesn't get to the level of probable cause. Now, there is some other things that could potentially get them there that they don't really explore in the CW because, well, it would have ended the show pretty darn quickly, like, for example, I'm sure that Clark has had a soda at some point, thrown it in the trash. He's abandoning his DNA at that point.
Sure.
Sheriff Nancy, is
Yeah.
that her name? Could have grabbed the soda can out of the trash, done a DNA test, figured out that this kid's an alien, and then had some questions. I mean, it's still not enough to arrest somebody because they're an alien, but you could potentially then tie that person back to crime scenes and things along those lines.
That evidence would be good in court. Like, how'd you come across this DNA?
I got it
test?
out of a trash can, Your Honor. Great, no problem. Because if you abandon your DNA, you don't have it's not an unlawful search. So really, even like your trash cans on the curb are no longer your property because they're out on the curb. So someone who worked with waste management and got your bundle of trash could, law enforcement could sift through your trash and go through and collect evidence. So that is a way that law enforcement can collect DNA samples, blood samples, those sorts. I mean, Clark, I don't know. He ended up bleeding for a handful of times, for different reasons throughout the show. Usually because
kryptonite's involved.
Kryptonite or witches are involved.
Sure.
But no. I mean, the abandonment of the DNA and then tying him back forensically, scientifically to one of the crime scenes might be a way for Sheriff Nancy to gain some traction. But she's not going to get a warrant for just his presence. It's going to take something else.
But I'm going to guess they're for sure opening an investigation on him, right?
They're for sure watching him super carefully. And in the same way that Chloe has her wall of weird, Sheriff Nancy probably has her wall of Clark. I mean, if we do see in a lot of media, an obsessive investigator, whether it's FBI, whether it's a detective, having their wall of having their murder board with strings drawn between and things like those things really do exist. And that's how law enforcement sometimes can put together these bigger puzzles. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sheriff Nancy was doing that. But there's a big jump between her having a wall or a thick file on where Clark Kent was all the time versus her taking legal action like an arrest or a search warrant.
You brought up the wall weird. Let's talk about the wall of weird real quick because, again, CW teen show.
Right.
The high school newspaper, The Torch, ends up being something that everyone in this town reads.
Of course.
It's the Daily Planet before they get to Metropolis, right? I mean, that's the character of Chloe because she was one of the people that a lot of fans thought was going to switcheroo. It's Lois Lane, like.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Instead, we got the worst switcheroo. Was like, oh, Jimmy Olsen's dead. No, that's Jimmy Olsen's brother. His little brother's going to use his name. I was like, what are we doing, guys?
That was so bad.
But Chloe has this thing, the wall of weird, which is essentially anytime, maybe I should back up for people who haven't watched the show or haven't seen it in a while. One of the brilliant things that Smallville did was that when Clark came from Krypton, there was a meteor shower that day, and a lot of the fragments of kryptonite and radiation from his home planet kind of infected different people in different ways, which is how we get our monster of the week. Yeah,
and they reference that on a regular basis as this disaster that hit the town. So it also has this interesting, traumatic backstory for the town of Smallville in general, because we get a chance to see the meteor shower coming in and destroying buildings and things along those lines.
And it killed Lana's parents.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of juxtaposition between she loves and trusts Clark, but he's hiding his secret of who he is and how he got here from her.
But only to protect her.
Always to protect her. But she only got concussed 47 and a half times.
Oh, she's not even close to the worst one.
According to Superman homepage, shout out to them for counting every concussion that someone has to have for Clark to do his thing. But the wall of weird. So Chloe, she's an investigative journalist for high school newspaper, but it seems like she only investigates what they call meteor freaks.
Which is fairly problematic. I mean, it seems like it's like right on the edge of a slur for her to be talking about meteor freaks.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because by the way, we got some A-list meteor freaks. Amy Adams,
yes,
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Amy Adams was my favorite meteor freak
because that was the dumbest, most amazing episode where she's like a plus size girl, but then like she drinks a meteor infected milkshake and then she wants to suck like people's bones or whatever. Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah.
I love her. I love Amy Adams.
Also, she was like 28 in high school, but I digress. So I wanted to ask about the wall of weird specifically. It's literally like a bulletin board in the school.
Yep.
I'm going to guess that the closest thing to being a meteor freak is kind of like a medical condition.
Yes.
I mean, essentially, is this not like defamation at some point? The fact that she's just putting up like, Joe Schmo, I'm pretty sure, is a meteor freak because he smells really weird in my chemistry class, and I think it might be actual, meteor radiation or whatever. And she's got his picture, and she's investigating them. Like, at what point are we like, no, you can't do that?
Yeah, and the defamation aspect of it is interesting because, first of all, if I'm representing Chloe, truth is a defense.
Okay.
So, there are other problematic aspects of this. But, if I'm saying, I saw Ryan develop alligator scales on his arm, and she has them on the wall of weird, she's got a picture of the scales, or actually if she can just establish that it's true in some way, then it's a defense to defamation. The other aspect is that there are different levels of defamation that end up happening from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
The things that you can say about a famous person, Tom Welling as an actor is a famous person.
Sure. I
I could get away with saying negligent lies about Tom Welling, and because he's a public persona, I would have to show that I'm intentionally lying, not just negligently changing, or being reckless with the truth or whatever.
Can you clarify that a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, since we're talking about Tom Welling, are we saying like Tom Welling got in a fight with all his co-stars on the set and no one liked him? I'm not saying that's true. I'm using this as an example. But is that something where it's like, well, I wasn't there.
Right.
I don't know. I've heard people say that. Can I go about saying that? Or is that, if Michael Rosenbaum then says that's completely untrue.
Michael Rosenbaum could say that's completely untrue. If you had a good faith belief that it was true, you would be okay because you're talking about a public figure.
Right.
Public figures, unfortunately, legally, are assumed to need to have thicker skins, and there's going to be more dialogue about a public figure than Clark Kent, who's a nobody in the town of Smallville. Right. So, or I don't know, I think I used the name Ryan, fictional Ryan with alligator scales, right? Who is for sure a nobody, even more of a nobody than Clark Kent is. If you are negligently untrue about Ryan, then that is going to trigger a defamation lawsuit, and you would lose that. But the higher of a public persona somebody has, the less defamation, slander, libel protection they actually have under the law.
How do you classify what public persona is?
Yeah, and it is a question for a jury or a judge. And these days we have more metrics to measure that, honestly, than we did in 2001 when the show came out.
Sure.
I mean, these days, look at social media followers, look at YouTube followers, look at what their last movie made, or there's a lot more in the way of metrics that you can measure that. There are people that are only famous on social media that you and I don't even know because we don't follow them, but they might have 5 million followers.
Sure.
And they would be considered a public figure under most metrics. So that's one aspect of the defamation area of the Wall of Weird. The other aspect of what you said was the medical aspect of the Wall of Weird.
Right.
And when we're talking about people with physical conditions, that is the closest to some sort of a disability or a medical condition. Now you're talking about exposing someone for that reason, and that really gets you close to more of a discrimination aspect. Again, I don't know that Chloe posting it would necessarily be a thing, but if the school newspaper said that my son has a medical condition that has scales on his arm, and the school newspaper allowed that to be published, I would sue the hell out of the school. Because that's a violation of my son's rights. That's medical. I don't know necessarily that I would win, but I would be angry with the school for their treatment of my son's medical condition. rather than being caught up in Chloe's wall of weird. So the last aspect of this ends up becoming whether this information just exists in the back journalist's office in Chloe's workspace versus actually gets to the paper. And that's kind of what I was alluding to in the last point about the publishing a kid's medical condition. No school should ever be saying, hey, are you aware that Ryan is a special needs kid and had an outburst in class yesterday? I mean, all of those things would be major problems if a school allowed something like that to go. And it's not that different from the Wall of Weir kryptonite freaks, from the meteor freaks. You're talking about these are all physiological conditions. It's not magic. It's not mental illness. We
don't know.
Well,
It
true.
could be,
True. Well, every once in a while it's witches.
Every once in a while.
I'm going to bring up the witches. Maybe Superman.com will do a witches count for this episode for us.
Yeah, how many witches we... well, I kind of feel like, because you brought up the liability of the school.
Yeah.
And I feel like the school is in a real lose-lose situation when it comes to Meteor kids, because it's like, on one hand, they've got... I said, Clark's at a pool at 11:30. It's like, that's literally an episode where like Meteor villains of the week, a lot of times, because it's a high school show, are doing their bad thing in or around the high school, which I would think that the high school is somewhat liable for. But on the other hand, what are they supposed to do? Because if it's like, you do some sort of meteor freak screen, and you say like, hey, if you've been infected by a meteor, you can't come here, I think you're gonna face a big discrimination.
100%. No. The Smallville High is in tons of trouble if they did something like that.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine if they had developed some sort of like a meteor detector and made kids walk through it to come into school?
I mean, what are they supposed to do though?
Yeah. Well, and as a parent, I would be concerned and let's have a town hall meeting about what we're going to do about the meteor freaks. PTA meeting about that. I can definitely have known some PTA moms that would lead the charge with pitchfork and torch, with something like that.
Yeah.
But you can't do but you can't do that. You can't discriminate medically against kids that have these disabilities. Now, the one thing that you can do, and I do see happen in my criminal defense practice, is if you can punish behavior. You can absolutely punish behavior. And if you've got a kid who is lighting fires on a regular basis, whether it's because they've got torchy hands or whether it's because they're playing with matches on a regular basis, now you do have to punish that behavior. And the school district does have a responsibility to protect the rest of the students against somebody like that. But it would require them to do a bad act and then respond and then protect the rest of the students, rather than proactively say, oh, we detected that you might have had a milkshake that makes you suck the life out of people, so you can't be at school anymore.
Sure. I mean, it's funny you brought up Fire in the Hands, because that was the episode, but it was the coach. It wasn't the kids. It was the dad from Wonder Years, Dan Loria.
That's right.
I would think at a certain point, though, like, would they legally be within their rights? Like the milkshake, right? To almost have like a COVID protocol. Like, if you've been exposed to a meteor, we ask that you stay home. Or
little checklist. Have you been exposed to a meteor in the last 7 days? Have you touched any rocks that are growing green? Do you feel sick or flamey or torchy, in any way, or witchy by any stretch? No, I mean, and when we start thinking about COVID protocols and quarantine and all of those issues, I think the difference with the meteor freaks is that it's not contagious. So what you're dealing with is you have to focus back on behavior.
Right.
You have to focus back on bad behavior. You know, if someone has demonstrated that they are a threat to the school or to the kids, then you can act. Just the fact that they're exposed is never going to be enough.
Yeah, because also too, you can't prove that everybody that's exposed or has powers does a bad thing, right?
Right,
Obviously,
right.
Clark being, I know he's not exposed, but he's got powers and obviously does the right thing.
You know, the one thing I always wondered though is, you know, so we've got these kids, and maybe they address this, and I don't remember. So correct me if I'm wrong, but they've got all these kids that were exposed to the meteors enough to develop powers, right? And they're all hanging around, Clark, and we know that there are times that Clark gets impacted by the meteor, by kryptonite from time to time. But you would think that if there's, you know, random milkshakes going around and he accidentally has a sip, isn't he going to have like a major allergic reaction?
Probably.
Like eating peanuts or something, like that level of horrible, awful allergic reaction?
Yeah, I mean, there are things too where it's like he enters in a relationship briefly with like I think it's like Alicia.
Yes, Alicia. I remember
and
Alicia.
She's got meteor powers.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she's bad in one episode and then kind of like Catwoman kind of like tries to be good in the other. But it's like you would think every time they kissed, because it's like in her DNA.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, but then we don't have a show.
Yeah.
You know?
Then, I mean, the fact that there's this much meteor activity in Smallville and
Right.
Clark is able to walk
The street.
the street at all, drink the water
Right.
in this town at all, is anyway.
Okay, so we keep talking about these like hypothetical, like, well, this could be a crime. This could be.
Yeah.
But there's one like blatant crime in
Oh, yeah.
this, and it's in the DNA of Superman's origin story, which
Yeah.
is the Kents just find this baby and they're like, yeah, we'll just take you home with
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Now, during this show, there are definitely times where they try to protect the forged kind of papers, the
Yeah.
adoption papers that I believe it was Lionel Luthor who helped them out.
100%.
But I mean, when you're talking about like adoption fraud and stuff like that, like what kind of trouble are the Kents looking at if that becomes exposed? I mean, he's got to be like 17 by the time that they would even find out at this point.
Yeah, well, the measurement would be from the time that they discover the fraud. And if they discovered that the Kents had lied filling out the adoption paperwork, and those papers are signed under penalty of perjury, they're often notarized, they're official legal documents, and the Kents are in trouble for that. There've been a lot of discussion about whether or not Superman is responsible for the fact that he's an illegal immigrant or doesn't have legal status or whatever. But really, it's Jonathan and Martha that are the ones that have the biggest criminal liability for the forging of those documents as it relates to Clark's birth.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is another thing where it's just like you kind of have to forgive it because no one ever thought that they would look at Superman in such a long, drawn out kind of series like this.
Yeah.
So a lot of the logic questions you don't think about when you're watching like Christopher Reeve, like
Right.
how did he go to the doctor? How did he pass a physical for the football
Right.
team? How did he do anything?
How did he get a shot?
How did he get a haircut? How did he go to the dentist?
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's like a lot of things.
Super plaque.
I would think that he could just like somehow like laser it off,
Yeah.
or like cold breath it off,
Yeah, something.
But I mean, like if they were caught for adoption fraud, I mean, at that point he's maybe a year or two away from being 18 anyway. Like, would it be worth? Is the juice worth the squeeze at that point?
It isn't. And, really, at the end of the day, what they did is they adopted a baby that they weren't sure about the origin and then had some evil rich guy help them forge documents. So at the end of the day, I think a court, a judge, even a prosecutor would look at them and say, well, at the end of the day, you've raised this kid, and good on you for doing that, and would look at the intent. Now, every once in a while, I've encountered prosecutors who are very black and white and would want to prosecute somebody for the violation of the letter of the law, and that would be the end of it. I think where we would look for some sort of balance is with a judge and understanding the bigger picture. One thing I do like about what Smallville did, different than like Christopher Reeve's Superman, is that they actually made concern and stress about the documents and about the adoption paperwork a plot point several times over the course of the show. Eventually, they moved on and everything was kind of out of the picture. But imagine Martha running for political office with forged paperwork in her background, with a potential crime in her background. I mean, that could have been I don't think that was raised during that time, but that could have been a significant development for the show as well. So, but I do like that you saw the Kents being nervous about it a handful of times.
You definitely saw it too, like in the earlier seasons of like, there are a couple times where he's infected with some outer space thing and they have to find that one trusted doctor. And Lex is engaged to her. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's talk about the meteor. Let's go back to the meteor shower for just a minute. Clark arrives in the meteor shower, and I do feel like it doesn't get too far into this, but I do feel like Clark does feel a sense of like guilt over the fact that a lot of this is because of him. Maybe not directly his fault, but because of him. If it were to somehow either come out that he was from this meteor shower, or he announced himself at some point, like, yes, I'm Clark Kent. Yes, I did come in this. Is he liable for every single person that gets infected by meteor rock?
No, he couldn't be, because he arrived as a baby, first of all. Mm-hmm. So at the time, if we're going to say that he somehow was responsible for the meteors to come, he was an infant. So there's no way that there's any sort of criminal liability that attaches to him for that.
It's not just meteor rocks, green kryptonite that we deal with in the show. We get introduced to the idea of different color kryptonite.
Yes.
There's the black kryptonite that like splits yourself apart, or there's I can't remember which color like actually like completely cancels out his powers.
Yeah.
But then there's red kryptonite.
Yeah.
In one of the episodes, they get their class graduation rings, and it's got red kryptonite in it, and he turns into evil Clark. It's where all his inhibitions are down.
Yes. He gets a leather jacket, too.
Now, this is
black leather jacket.
Well, this is important to denote. The first time that he puts on the ring, he doesn't know what red kryptonite is. Mm-hmm. He's under the influence of this thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything super terrible. He charges a bunch of stuff on his parents' card that they can't afford, blah, 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 blah. I'm not talking about the first time he does it. I'm talking about the second time that he does it. So this is after he goes to his spaceship because Jor-El wants him to go back to do his training, and he says no. He destroys his ship that he came in. It creates a huge, almost like an EMP wave, and Martha is pregnant, but this ends the pregnancy. He feels so guilty and just so terrible that his parents would never love him again, that to hide the pain or to deal with the pain, he takes that ring that he knows is bad, puts it on. Then we get the motorcycle. He
so badass.
Yeah, he drives into Metropolis, which in this show is like 2 hours away in Kansas, and he does a major crime spree. We're talking like major bank robberies, everything. Gets a penthouse. Eventually Jonathan comes. It's so convoluted, but Jonathan
does an intervention.
Yeah, gets him to come home.
Son, you gotta come back home.
And at that point, that's where, like, I say they brush a lot of things under the rug. Like, he's just like, well, I put all the money back, and I didn't leave a trace of anything. It's like, dude.
Yeah. Friends at home, it is not a defense to put the stuff back. You're still good for the crime. That's legal advice for the day.
So if I somehow magically break into a bank vault, I take 5 duffel bags of money. I drive home and I'm like, this isn't me. I shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
And I drive back and put it all back.
Yep.
That's still robbery.
Oh, yeah. Let's say they stop you before you get out the door. You're still good for it.
Well, I mean, what if no one stops me this entire time? I'm able to take it and put it back
all the way home, put it back.
And then like a week later.
Right. They check the security footage and blurry business. They slow it down. They see it's you on the security camera. And yeah, you're good for the crime. I mean, there's no gray area. There's no caveat. Like, you are good for the crime. We see this all the time at the firm with people that shoplift and people who get stopped outside of the store. Usually that's what loss prevention officers at most retail stores will say, let them get right outside the store. But the law doesn't require that. And so more and more we see loss prevention officers stopping them as soon as they're past the registers or as soon as they put it in their purse rather than they put it in their shopping cart. So more and more and more we're seeing that level of stopping of theft. And if the legal principle is that you're good for the theft as soon as you take the thing, then you having second thoughts later is going to be different. Now, it's a little different if I'm walking through Target and I take a carton of milk because I think that I'm going to, and I have the intent in my mind, I'm going to steal this carton of milk.
Right.
And by the time I get up to the register, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. The problem is you'd never be able to prove that I had that intent as long as I kept my mouth shut.
Sure.
But if I go past the register, we have tons of cases. Like every month we have new shoplifting cases that come in where people are stopped by loss prevention before they leave the store and they're good for the theft.
But my question then is like, but then what's the damages? You didn't actually take it.
That's the thing. No damage. So they don't owe any money back. Mm-hmm. Now, the people who take a watch or take, fancy shoes and take it completely out of the store and give it to somebody else or sell them on eBay or whatever, then those people will need to pay back the store. Mm-hmm. So part of the criminal process is giving back restitution, paying it back. But we have these conversations in court every week where we're saying, is the store owed any restitution? Nope, they got the property back. Okay, good. They don't owe any money. But they're still going to go to jail for a little bit for shoplifting. And that is how those cases are resolved.
Yeah, so I mean with Clark it's just like
with Clark, it's bank robbery. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but holy cow! With him, it's like bank robbery, carjacking. I mean, it's not taking a carton of milk. I mean, the crimes that he commits while under the influence of red kryptonite. I mean, they usually put like a dial in like help number at the end of those CW episodes too. It's kind of like the after school specials of if you have a problem with red kryptonite, call this number and get some help. I mean,
it's like AKA crack,
They're just not even being subtle. Well, CW does not stand for subtle watching.
No. It also doesn't start with a C, but I digress.
Exactly.
I do wonder though, like the difference, I guess, between like that happening here and that happening in Smallville is that the law enforcement in Smallville seems to acknowledge and accept that the meteor infections are real and happen. So couldn't Clark's defense literally just be the truth? Like, I was under the influence. Now, the first time, yes. The second time, it'd be a little harder because he chose to put it on. So maybe he would just have to lie and omit that part.
Yeah. Well, and we know Superman doesn't lie. So, I mean, there's that.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. That would be the defense. And looking at what red kryptonite does, it's like this weird compilation of every possible drug that exists, right? I mean, it's mental illness, it's impulsivity control, it's all of these things. Then you've got the fact that he has major trauma going on from a mental health standpoint because of what he did, because of the loss of a sibling, because of the harm to his mother. So what you have from a defense standpoint would be a handful of mental health issues, PTSD, anxiety, trauma, all of the things, that depression that he went through because of blowing up the ship.
Right.
Then you've got someone who is, and we see this all the time, someone who is self-medicating. He put on the ring, but he put on the ring to deal with the pain rather than getting on some antidepressant medication or going through some therapy.
I'm going to put this on so I can go steal a bunch of stuff.
I mean, it's the equivalent of grabbing a whiskey bottle and drinking himself, into a stupor. I mean, that is what the metaphor here is. And when you've got a mental health diagnosis and a co-occurring substance abuse issue, that we see that all the time. And we see people who steal when they're doing that. We see people who are addicted on drugs and have other mental health issues make bad decisions. And thankfully, these days, we have options of getting them into a mental health diversion program rather than having them go to jail. So even though I was very black and white about the fact that this is crimes, no question it's crimes, but then how I would defend Clark Kent would be giving the larger picture. And then, especially if I remember correctly, he went to Metropolis. Yes. So we don't know that Metropolis understands the meteor problem as much as Smallville understands the meteor problem. But you bring in Smallville experts into Metropolis Court to talk about what this weird rock does in this other town, and that would be the defense.
All right, we're going to play a game now.
I love this.
This is called Who's the Worst Luthor? Because this show is built around the idea of the first, I would say, 3 seasons. Lionel Luthor is actually the big bad.
For sure.
And when Lex finally kind of starts to turn and become the big bad, his turn is instigated by his father, basically gaslighting him and torching his memories and torturing him, essentially. Then in season 8, we get Tess Mercer, who we find out later on is Lutessa Luthor. So she's Lex's sister. And she actually does the opposite arc of Lex, where Lex starts out as a good guy and eventually does a heel turn. She's a heel that does a babyface turn and joins kind of Clark's team. But let's start with Lionel. Because Lionel is...
Lionel does kind of get nicer near the end.
Yes, but remember, it's also like not Lionel, right? Isn't it Lionel from like another reality or another dimension?
Good Lord. If that's the case, I forgot. I must have blocked it out.
But he also... So let's at least look at early season Lionel.
Sure.
Because we're talking about extortion. We're talking about like massive fraud.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about murder. So he, if memory serves, he killed his own parents for the insurance money to set up Luthor Corp.
In a fire. Yes. That's the whole thing. Lex finds that out.
Yeah.
And that's what triggers him into like, well, now I've got to make it look like Lex is crazy. And that's what sends him to the asylum. That kind of starts the whole Lex really bad turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's pretty bad. So that's Lionel.
Yeah.
Let's put Lionel right here for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Now let's get to Lex.
Yes.
Lex, he's got well, let me ask, is this illegal? He's got a whole museum in his house that is just about spying on Clark.
Yeah. I don't think that's illegal.
No?
That it's just a richer version of Chloe's Wall of Weird.
So I mean, can I have a folder on my desktop called Doug Ridley, and it's pictures I've taken of you? It's anywhere that you've checked in. I keep a log of where you've been. Like, that's all legal?
Yeah, unless you get to a point where you've recorded without permission, or if you've accessed things in an illegal way. But this is what private investigators do, right? They follow people around and track their movements and figure out where they are and where they went, and all of to put together exactly that kind of dossier. So I don't find anything illegal, creepy, but nothing illegal about Lex's collection of Clark history.
But he's also doing a lot of illegal experimentation.
Oh yeah, I just talking about the Clark collection. He is. I mean, he's Nuremberg levels of sinister in the way he's doing experiments on people
and false imprisonment.
Yes,
he ends up killing some version of Lionel Luthor. You're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, did Lionel just go good, or something happens to him?
Yeah.
That I can't. It's like he becomes a vessel for something.
For witches.
It could be witches, Kryptonian witches. But I remember there is a distinct point in the series where Lionel is like, that Clark is the Traveler, and I'm here to help the Traveler.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
the Traveler.
You're right.
Oh,
and Veritas
gosh.
and all that.
Yeah.
But Lex definitely murders his dad, and it's not just like I'm going to coyly do this and there's no evidence. Like, pretty sure he falls out the window. And the crazy thing about the death of Lionel Luthor, I think that was just like a cold open to the rest of the episode. Lex had just been so far gone by that point. So that's Lex. We'll put him over here.
Okay.
So Lionel, Lex. Then Tess comes along. This is after we think that Lex has died in the kind of implosion of the Fortress of Solitude. Michael Rosenbaum probably just didn't want to shave his head anymore, so he left for a while. But Tess comes in. Her thing is really mostly like she secretly monitors a lot of things. She's probably got some illegal, tapped into certain databases and things she's not supposed to be in. A lot of evidence destruction and cover-ups, but she's not nearly as bad as the other two. I think I can safely say that we eliminate her from the competition pretty early on.
I think so too. And really, as a former prosecutor, she's the one I'm going to flip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have her testify on the rest of the family.
Which she probably will, because she's the one that has, in an otherwise amazing series finale, she is tasked with the dumbest scene maybe in Smallville, which is the memory goo, where she spreads the memory goo on Lex so he won't remember the last 10 years. Do you remember that?
I had forgotten until you just now mentioned the memory goo. And I think we've lost an opportunity in this episode, because as focused on the witches as I've been, memory goo might be even better.
And it's the way it comes up. He's like, "What did you do?" She's like, the memory goo, the stuff you've been working on in secret so that no one can remember anything. And I'm like, oh, that would have been convenient to have for the last 10 years. Funny how it just came up today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like she's put some, Nickelodeon slime on his face. And he's like, what will I forget? She's like, everything, or whatever it is. So she would totally...
Yeah, she'd flip. She'd flip. She had been working with the team for a while too. So I mean, it's not like that would be a difficult flip. But that's how I would handle her from a prosecution standpoint.
So really, here's where the game comes in. You, Mr. Doug Ridley, are in such a position. Now, I know you say all the time, well, I get to choose my clients. Well, not today.
Okay.
for whatever reason, you need Luthor money.
I always need Luthor money. Like, is there any of us that doesn't need Luthor money at some point?
You have to defend either Lionel or Lex. Not based on who you like or whatever. Who do you think actually has a better shot at having a case, Lionel or Lex?
Ooh. See, it's a fun exercise because I keep thinking about Anakin Skywalker.
Okay.
And what we have is 10 seasons of backstory on Lex Luthor as the development of a character. You know, Clark has somewhat of an arc, you know, over the course of 10 seasons, but he pretty much starts as Clark Kent and he pretty much ends as Clark Kent. The difference is he puts on a suit.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's the show for Clark. For Lex, we actually have delusional arcs and arcs that are completely unbelievable from time to time. But we do very intentionally understand how broken he is, how manipulated he is by Lionel, how evil, just straight out, you know, surface of the sun evil Lionel Luthor is, and how he is doing everything he can to break Lex, to hurt Lex, to try to toughen Lex up, to try to teach him, to try to mold him into his image. And it's not that different than what Palpatine does to Vader, does to Anakin.
Yeah.
You know, and while Lionel does eventually have his day, right? Have his, you know, now I'm going to somehow know all about Kryptonians and support the Traveler, you know, so maybe he gets somewhat of a redemption, you know, near the end. It's pretty hard to come back from I killed my mom and dad for the insurance money and set up an evil company, you know, who also then has done evil things and every other thing that he's done. You know, his redemption arc at the end, for whatever ludicrous reason it was, whether he got, you know, Kryptonian goo slathered on his face and turned into a Traveler-loving, you know, Kryptonian fan, or, you know, whatever the reason. Yes, please, monkeys, let's go. Whatever the reason was, to me, that's a much harder story than the creation of a kid who is just systematically broken down by his dad time and time again, and abused and hurt and trained, and you know, you feel bad for Lex almost the entire way through, and even near the end where he's at his most evil in Smallville, you can still remember the kid that had his feelings hurt because he was best friends with Clark and Clark wouldn't be best friends back.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of where the anger comes from.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you had told me this from the beginning, like, I could have helped you help people.
Right.
Why did you keep this from me, you know?
Right. Yeah. To protect you.
Yeah.
That's the CW answer for everything. But you know, the Lex Luthor at season 10 is still the same kid who had his feelings hurt because who he thought was his best friend didn't trust him or betrayed him or turned away from him or didn't trust him to do the thing or didn't take his side, you know, and the fact that he is so broken like that, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah, of the two, I would pick Lex Luthor to defend. I wouldn't pick Lionel ever.
I want to talk about the Blur real quick before we get to fan questions. The Blur is what they call Superman before Superman.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about vigilantism a lot on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watch any Batman episode we've done. I don't know if I would go so far as to call the Blur a vigilante.
No.
He's like a helper.
Right.
But he also does deliver criminals to justice.
He does.
He almost kind of like pushes them towards the authorities.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the biggest difference between the Blur and Batman is the Blur is going to, make sure that the handcuffs aren't too tight as he sets them on the police station doorstep.
I guess, I'm more like, he's got super hearing. He's got, he definitely breaks and enters into places he's not supposed to be in to get information to help people.
For sure. Well, he does that Scooby-Doo mystery thing where, they pick a lock into the door to go into the file cabinet to get the information, and that answers all the questions, and then they can solve the mystery.
I mean, he's a private citizen. I mean, would you say that he's interfering in police investigations, especially when he shows up in, the final 10 minutes of any given episode,
Interfering versus helping, I think, is the distinction. And the difference between him and a lot of vigilantes that we see on the show is Clark Kent, the Blur, ends up really with good intentions, with a good heart, helping law enforcement, helping the firefighter. We hear all the time, or you're rescuing a kitten from a tree, when people talk about Superman. And this Clark Kent in Smallville really has that good heart and is really doing it that way. Now, if we really went deep and picked apart, some of the episodes, even the ones without witchcraft or magic or red kryptonite, there are definitely times where he gets mad and punches somebody, which would be an assault. There are definitely times where he breaks into a place, which is breaking and entering. There are definitely crimes that this Clark Kent does over the course, but he just doesn't have that same vibe at all like a vigilante, like in a lot of the other shows that we've talked about.
Okay, let's get to some fan questions here. This is a character we haven't really talked about, but his best friend, at least for the first couple seasons, is Pete.
Yes, Pete.
This question is, does Pete Ross violate any laws by helping Clark hide his secret?
No. That's no different than just being a good friend and keeping a secret. Now, when Pete helps Clark break into an office, then yeah, he's equally responsible and he's breaking rules. If he if Clark had just gone out and punched a guy through the head and killed them, and Pete's helping him hide out in his basement, then yeah, he's committing a crime, helping somebody who's a fugitive of justice. But just by keeping the secret, nope, he's just being a good friend.
This is referencing a kind of an obscure storyline from season 8 that a lot of people don't remember, which is the end of Lana's story. I don't know if you remember the end of Lana's story in Smallville. It does not end the way that people think it does. I guess the spirit of the question seems to be, if someone gets Clark's kryptonite or Krypton powers and they do something, is Clark responsible or are they responsible?
I don't see how Clark could be responsible. So, unless even if Clark intentionally gave Lana her powers, trying to twist it a bit, let's say that there was a different colored kryptonite ring that could take his powers off for a minute and somebody else could wear them. That is similar to, you borrowing a weapon from me and then you going off and doing something bad with it. I'm not responsible with what you do with a weapon when you leave. Now, if you're 5 years old and you get something dangerous because I give it to you, now I'm responsible. But at this point, Lana's a full-grown adult, so there just wouldn't be a way to make Clark responsible for that, just because. And especially under these circumstances. I mean, if anybody's responsible, it's Lex for giving her the nano suit Project Prometheus.
I'm telling you, by season 8, they're like, guys, we don't know. We're just...
Yeah.
We're running
I
out the
cannot
clock here.
tell you how many times Rory said, "Why are you still watching this show when you act like that every single time when you're done?" It's like, because in about 3 episodes something really cool is going to happen.
Because we were all waiting to see the final thing. We were going
Yeah.
to stick with it until we saw that shield on his
Yeah.
chest.
Well, and now I can sit here all these years later and say I watched every episode of Smallville. I don't know that makes me better or worse.
No, we're in a very small, sad community.
Although I still love Tom Welling, and I love what they did on Arrow, bringing them back just a little bit in the Arrowverse.
Oh, you're talking about
They did
the
like
crisis?
the Crisis on Infinite
Oh,
Earths.
can I just say, and even if I have to cut this out later, I hated that so much.
Oh, it was terrible. It could have been amazing. It had that might be the biggest potential loss that CW ever did, because that could have been the coolest storyline ever, and
but
it
it's
was
like,
just
how do you have Tom Welling back and Erica Durance, who is still a dish?
yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I gave up being Superman. I just wear this whatever color kryptonite, so I'm not super anymore because I wanted to be a family. I'm like, then why the did I watch this for 10 years? What was the point? What was the point? 10 years, about a decade.
And he decided just not to be Superman anymore.
He just decides, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like the biggest you to
I
everyone that watched.
remember how excited I was during Crisis on Infinite Earths when they had the Smallville, aerial
Yeah.
shot coming in. I'm like, oh, and I sang the song, and Rory was irritated. I mean, it was perfect. And oh, Arrowverse. We probably need to do Arrowverse next.
I'm good not doing Arrowverse if we're being real here. I'm totally fine never watching most of those shows again. Let's finish off with one more. Could Lois be sued for publishing stories based on anonymous superhero sources?
No, no. Journalists are allowed to use secret sources. Now, anonymous sources is one thing. I think that most editors of most newspapers, especially in this, and let's just pretend that we're not in today's world, in the Smallville world of newspaper journalism and Daily Planet journalism, Perry is going to require some sort of second source or whatever. If it's just a completely anonymous tip and Lois was to write an entire story without verifying any of it, she would get in some trouble. She wouldn't be now, and then if it was wrong, then that's where a defamation lawsuit could come into play,
Right.
for something like
Yeah.
that. But I would imagine that the Daily Planet is going to require not just an anonymous source, and if it is just an anonymous tip, getting some sort of corroboration for that.
I really like this question. I was going to end on the last one, but I saw this one. I'm like, ooh, I really like this. If Clark reveals his identity years later, can old investigations be reopened?
What are you thinking about and why?
Well, I'm just thinking this possibly, going back to the very start of our conversation.
Yeah.
Here's this kid that shows up to all these crime scenes and he's just there and it's coincidence or whatever. Now, years later, you find out, oh, he's got powers, and that maybe could explain some of oh, he showed up and there was a big hole punched through a tractor at this thing, but we don't know why.
Right.
That type of thing. It adds more context to maybe some of these cold cases that they would have,
Agreed. And the only way that it would happen is if it somehow made someone less guilty. So not just the fact that he was there, not just the fact that he was a witness, not just the fact that he gave a statement saying, I saw, Bob, break into the bank vault or something,
But I wouldn't, him coming out and saying, okay, yes, I am this, I'm Superman, Clark is Superman.
Right.
Wouldn't that basically be is it, if I give you a witness statement and I lie, that's still perjury, even though I'm not on the stand, right? Or no?
Right. So if the statement was, oh, by the way, are you Superman? no, I'm not Superman.
Well,
Now he's a liar.
Well, no, it's like, oh, well, why were you here? Oh, I was just walking by and I saw it. Well, that's probably a lie.
Is it?
You used your powers because you broke into this place. You knew that this was going to happen because your super hearing heard the heartbeat in the other room, so you broke into the thing.
And so then, if there was a case where Clark's statement was material, was the reason why someone was convicted, then something that questions his credibility, look, he was a liar for all those years. Now maybe that is a little bit more relevant. It seems, though, that with what we know of Clark as he's progressing, certainly through this show, but I would say just in all lore, Clark's pretty careful to make sure that he's not the only witness. We don't typically see Clark. We don't typically see Clark Kent taking the stand at a jury trial and saying, "This is what's going on."
No, but I mean that's part of where this show seems a little legally ridiculous. Is that we never see him go to any trial ever, and he's always almost directly involved. I'm just saying, like, if you were the defensive attorney for, let's go back to our Ryan the Scale Boy,
right?
Wouldn't that be something you would immediately jump on and be like, I think we can get an appeal with that?
Well, and again, we have to take it through all the different lines, right? So if Sheriff Nancy gets a statement from Clark Kent that says, I saw Ryan the Scale Boy commit a crime, let's just say punch Pete in the mouth. Okay. And that was the only evidence about who it was that punched Pete in the mouth. And we were relying solely on Clark's testimony. Then Clark's testimony becomes legally material. And then if Clark is a prolific liar over a long time, then as his defense attorney, if the entire conviction rests on the testimony of someone that we find out later is a horrible liar, then there's a reason to go back. But all of those ifs are tough to establish. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example where Clark's testimony would be the only evidence. What you'd end up needing to do is potentially then retry Ryan for punching Pete in the mouth, remove Clark's testimony completely, and do you still have a case? If Clark was the only person who could identify the criminal, then yes, that's going to fall apart. If on the other hand, Pete says, well, Clark is the one who did it, but I saw Ryan with my own two eyes punch me in the mouth, then he doesn't go away just because Clark was a witness who's a liar. So it needs to be material. The conviction needs to hang on something that Clark Kent said. And then if I'm the prosecutor, I'm going to argue all the reasons why, even if we know Clark is Superman, has he lied throughout time, or has he just been very careful about keeping a secret about who he is? And I don't think it's super clear that Clark Kent is a liar because he doesn't tell the world that he's Superman.
Interesting. Because this show, because it's going for so long and it's 22 episodes a season, they kind of have to ride that line a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Because they can't just come right out and say, he's a repetitive liar. Now, every single relationship issue that he has is around keeping his secret. Every single, you lied to me about who you were and all of these things. And I don't know that I share that opinion completely. I think that I think the spirit of it is, you lied because you didn't tell me you were Superman. But going several steps deeper, did he I can't remember a scene where he said, "Look, I'm not Superman." And short of that, no, I didn't save the kid from the burning building. That wasn't me. I think he's much more careful about that in this show.
There are so many different Supermans and medias, and even right now we have a new Superman with David Cornsweet. And I know he's only Superman for about 7.5 seconds at the end of the season finale or series finale, but I still count Tom Welling as one of the Supermen.
Definitely.
And for what he had to do, I thought he was great.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I liked him. And even when I was frustrated with the show, even when I rolled my eyes about the witches or the red kryptonite or, the gigantic plot holes or legal issues, Tom Welling was just such a likable, good Clark Kent that I agree with you. I mean, he's one of my favorites.
I mean, the show was just, even though maybe it overstayed its welcome a little bit, ultimately, when you look back at it, it's like, it's such a fun piece of the Superman lore. And I know people were like, God, I just want to see him in the costume. I just want Superman. It's like, oh, but I kind of really like just spending time with Clark right on the precipice of becoming Superman. And I don't know if it's true. I don't want to do any defamation, but I've heard the rumors that Tom Welling was like, I'm not wearing that suit, which is why his head is very badly CGI'd on top of the Superman Returns suit in the finale. And why he clearly didn't want to wear it in the Infinite Crisis on Infinite Earths. But even so, I mean, find me one person that watched that series finale that didn't just jump off their couch when you hear the John Williams score and he's opening the thing and you're like, and here we go.
And here we go. And, and give it to producers for literally being a tease for 10 years.
That's hard.
And people were still watching it. I'm not the only one who was watching it all the way to the end. Otherwise it would have been canceled years before.
Yeah, no, I was there to the bitter end, but I loved that it had its own little kind of continuity. Yes, it followed a lot of the same Superman things, but because they had to, you got to bring in Darkseid early. You got to bring in all these established villains early, Doomsday early.
Yeah.
I liked that it was its own thing. I feel like as we keep adding with Supergirl, like I said, coming out in theaters, we keep adding more pieces to the overall myth of Superman. This is just a really fond piece of it for me.
Mm-hmm. Agreed completely. I'm looking forward to seeing what we do, and I'm really glad for some more Superman content in our world. I'm grateful to James Gunn for that. I'm grateful for Superman, which you and I both absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And I don't have the same expectations for Supergirl as I do for Superman, just because I don't want to get my hopes up to that level, and I don't want to think that it's going to be as good as Superman. I mean, you and I left the theater for Superman just glowing. I mean, it was one of the most hopeful, wonderful movies I'd seen in a long time. And I will see Supergirl because the same people worked on it, and I hope that it's good.
I mean, it's got Lobo in it, which is one of the dumbest, weirdest.
Jason Momoa as
one of
Lobo
my
is
favorite characters.
That's got to be. I mean, having not seen it yet, that's got to be just some of the best casting ever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so much better casting than him as Aquaman. I mean, he is a perfect Lobo. I mean, well, but I guess we'll see.
You can tell us in the comments by the time this comes out if you've seen Supergirl, what you thought. Or if you want to check out any of our other super episodes. We've done Batman v Superman. We've done Superman, James Gunn's Superman.
Yeah.
And a lot of other stuff too.
And let me just do a really quick shout out one more time. I have my Doug Defends Superman shirt on. We do have a TeePublic store. The link in the bio in any place that you're watching this has a link to our TeePublic store. My daughter Gabby is the one who draws all of our Doug Defends characters, and you can own our Doug Defends shirts if you go to the TeePublic store. But just, Gabby, I love you, and I love that you make me look cool in cartoon form.
You got to go to Supergirl with your Doug Superman shirt, right?
No question. This is what I'm wearing to Supergirl. 100%.
Well, if you want to see some of the other shirts, because you and I wear them all the time, check out all the episodes here on the YouTube channel. If you want to listen to us, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. Hope you guys enjoy Supergirl. Hope you enjoyed the Smallville episode. We'll see you guys next time.
Always hold on to Smallville.